Welcome to Arizona Bill Watch, the show where you get satisfaction if you're not getting it from your state legislators. We report and comment on what happens at the state legislature and alert you on what is coming up next. And now, Arizona Bill Watch.
Hello everyone, welcome to Arizona Bill Watch for another lively discussion of important and controversial bills. I am your host, Jose Borrajero. Thank you for watching. There is a lot going on at the Capitol these days, so stay tuned because we have a fantastic show for you today. But before we do that, some housekeeping items. Number one, we would love for you to watch the whole show from beginning to end. However, you may also fast forward to the bills of your choice by using the handy chart that we have placed down below. Secondly, if you like what you see, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to us. Third, it costs money to do what we do. So if you like what you see, you may contribute by going to our website, azpeopleslobbyist.com. So with all that out of the way, let's look at the first bill. Welcome back, everyone. I am Jose, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Archie and Gloria. And as usual, we try to have a little bit of a civics lesson whenever we have the time to do so. And today we're going to be talking about a subject that's extremely important to all of you, I am sure. And that is what is referred to as strike everything amendments. These are amendments to legislative bills. And I don't know if other states have the same stuff. But here in Arizona, we have a provision whereby an individual a legislator, can take the text of a bill, the whole text of the bill, okay, and take it from his bill and transfer it to somebody else's bill and replace everything that was there before. So Bill A is no longer Bill A because it's gone, but Bill B that had text in it now has the text of Bill A, and that is done through a strike everything amendment. In other words, it's an amendment, but instead of just being amending 1 or 2 or 3 lines, it's amending the whole thing. Strike everything. Now it is used quite extensively right now. Last I checked, there were 75 bills that were having a strike everything amendment, and that's quite a bit actually. But it's done for a variety of reasons. Number one is that it's sneaky, because you're looking at a bill and you think it has a certain content in it, but it turns out that it has a totally different content. And
right.
And by the time you realize what happened, it's done. So if you want to be sneaky about it, that's one way to do it. Another reason is sometimes it's just a convenience thing. A bill is not moving very well, but there is enough support for it, so you just want to move it to a different venue. You want to look at it from a different point of view. So there are some semi-legitimate reasons for having it, but in my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't happen. We should not have that. Every bill should stand on its own, and people should be able to tell exactly what's in there and so on.
And if they don't like something, just strike out little bits of it like it's already done, right?
Right. Now that does not apply to regular amendments. I mean, you can amend the bill, if it has a clause in there that you don't like or whatever, that's something else, because that is out in the open. Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. This strike everything amendment, it's done in a manner that is just not widely known, unless you are one of the insiders that knows what's going on. Citizens have no idea. There is a place in the legislators' website where you can see the bills that have been the subject of strike all amendments, but that's not readily available. I mean, it is readily available, but it's not readily seen. In other words, you just go in there.
You have to go search for it.
Yeah, unless you know what you're looking for and where to go, you would have no clue. Mm-hmm. No clue. So we don't like it. At least I don't like it. What about you guys? You guys think it's a good idea?
I don't particularly think it's a good idea. It's they have a limitation. They have a cutoff date when new bills can be introduced. And this is one way around getting around that limitation on when a bill can be introduced.
Yeah.
You find a bill, to give you an illustration, Bill 1 is not going anywhere. Nobody in either house is in favor of whatever is contained in Bill 1. Bill 2, or maybe not even a bill that's introduced. A legislator has something that they want to introduce, so they take Bill 1, which is not going anywhere, and they use that number, and then they do a strike all, and they put whatever in content in it they want. So it's a way of getting around the limitation on the number of bills that can be introduced.
Right, and we have a big problem in Arizona because we don't have enough bills introduced.
Right.
Yes,
Right,
we all
right,
know how
Archie?
Archie feels about that, and I agree.
1,700 bills is not enough. We need another avenue to introduce bills in a sneaky manner.
We need to have an initiative that limits the number of bills they can introduce to no more than 5.
5.
Yeah.
I agree.
Maybe we'll get some serious bills once in a while instead of all of this crap we get.
So in other words, the argument that it is a good way to introduce a bill that missed the cutoff doesn't wash very well with some of us.
Not me.
So anyway, that's the lesson for today. House Bill HB 2308, short title, Secretary of State Election Recusal. It is going to be heard in the Senate Elections Committee on the 6th, which I believe is Monday. Correct.
Yes.
Monday the 6th. This bill, we have already talked about it before because, and let me mention something at this point. Every bill that we discuss from now on is going to be a bill that has already cleared the initial chamber. In other words, we have already passed the point where bills can be introduced in the original chamber. So the bills that passed in the House are now being heard in the Senate, and bills that passed in the Senate are now being heard in the House. So this bill cleared the House, and now it's in the Senate. So it goes through the exact same process. It goes through the, well, first of all, the committee hearings, the committee of the whole, and the whole thing until eventually goes to what they call it a third reading, which is a vote of the whole chamber. And then if the bill passes, and it went through without any changes, it goes to the governor. If they made any changes in the bill, then it has to go back to the House or the original chamber to reconcile those changes. But anyway, this bill did pass in the House, so it's now in the Senate, and it's a common sense bill. We can remind the folks at home why I think we had a consensus on this bill that it was good. Was that right, Archie and Gloria?
Yep, it was.
Right. It didn't go far enough, but yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this what it does is something that we saw right. The person in charge of elections should not be a candidate, because I know how honest Katie Hawks is. However, it does create a little bit of
Conflict?
doubt as to if you are a candidate, there's always the temptation there that you may try to influence the election one way or the other. And and what the bill does is very simply, the Secretary of State, if the Secretary of State is a candidate, he or she must recuse and announce who would be taking his or her duties. In other words, for the duration of this other person would be taking on those duties.
Of the election. And
Yeah, the election.
And I remember that my thought is that it doesn't go far enough, because in my opinion, they should just recuse themselves completely. If they're going to run for an office, they should get, especially over elections, they should just step down and let the next person take their spot and go from there.
Well, the problem I see with it is, and I've underlined it here, shall announce publicly the person in the secretary's office that will take the secretary's place. Well, that's really not having somebody take the secretary's place. If you're an employee of the secretary and you're employed at the behest and behest of the secretary, if you disagree with what the secretary wants you to do, then you're probably not going to be employed. So there's still a conflict of interest, and so whoever is going to be taking over the duties should be somebody outside the secretary's office and not an employee underneath the secretary because of a potential conflict. It puts the employee's job in danger, and there's no reason for that. Put it to get it to somebody else. Yeah.
Like me.
That's right.
Like Jose.
Yeah.
So we agree that it is a good bill. We agreed to this when it first came up. The only thing is that it doesn't go far enough, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
Right.
HB 2415, short title, Active Early Voting List Removal. It will be heard in the Senate Elections Committee and on Monday, the 6th. This was introduced by Representative Yasuki, and it's a very simple bill, actually. All it does is that it changes if you do not, if you're on the early voter list and you do not vote, now if you do that twice in a row, you're removed from the early ballot. If under this bill, if you do it once, you are removed. I don't know. Does that make sense?
My question is, and it's just popped into my head, and I don't know if it's addressed in here, but if you get an early ballot, but then choose to go to the polling place to do, instead of mailing your ballot in, would that be construed as you did or didn't vote? Because you didn't mail it in, but you still voted.
Right, and that's not, I don't know if that's specific.
If you turn the ballot in at a precinct, then it's considered as though it's a
No,
mail-in.
but if you physically go in and vote.
If you physically go in and vote, then you didn't mail it in. You've still voted, but you didn't vote.
Right.
But I don't think it counts against you if
So,
if you voted even though you did not mail it in.
The question is whether or not you voted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and are you taken off with this, or do you stay on the early?
No, you'd stay on,
Oh,
but
okay.
Under the current law, you'd still stay on the list with that.
Oh, okay.
But then, I mean, as both of you know, I'm really anti-mail-in ballots. I mean, people
Yes.
need to go to the precinct and vote in person. We get rid of mail-in ballots are so subject to fraud.
Absolutely.
And we need to get rid of that. We talk about election integrity, legislation, and all of that stuff that's going on all the time, and yet we continue to allow this stuff, which is so subject to fraud. And
Well, there's
they
a
just
lot
need-
of people out there to say this is the most effective and secure way to vote.
Oh, of course, they don't want to go to the polls. They don't want to wait
That's
through the
right.
lines. Therein lies
Okay,
the problem.
and that is where the problem lies.
That's right.
That's what the problem is, because the more that Republicans push for this notion of getting rid of mailing ballots, the less likely they are to be elected. Because 80% of the voters in Arizona use the mail-in ballot, and they're very happy with it. They are too lazy to take 1 hour every 2 years to go vote. Okay, so it's a losing proposition for Republicans to try to get rid of the mailing ballot, as bad as it is. Now, one solution to that would have been to make it so that the way that you identify mail-in ballots entails more than just a signature. Right now, there's a signature in the envelope, and that's all that determines whether it's a correct ballot or not. Okay? But the people looking at it are not experts. It takes a lot of experience, and it is a skill thing to be able to tell whether the signature is valid or not. Okay? And we have shown proof time and again that many of these ballots go through with very low or no attention to the signature.
Right.
So there was a resolution that was it was put in the it was a ballot initiative put in there by the legislature, whereby they would have required an affidavit that included more information, not just the signature. That measure failed by about 1%. Okay, it was like 49 to 50, something like that. In other words, it was very close, but still lost. Okay, that's the type of thing that we should be following and trying to improve, because to take away the ballots, the mail-in ballots from 80% of the people who enjoy it and too lazy to go to the polls, they are going to just be angry at the Republicans. It's that simple. It's a losing proposition. That's why I don't think that we should be getting rid of it. We should try to make it more difficult to cheat. For that reason alone.
You're never going to have an election that's free of fraud until you get rid of mail-in ballots, except for the military or people who are, for some reason or other, are out of the state because of their job. Until you get rid of mail-in ballots, you're always going to have fraud in an election. It's just going to happen. It's just too easy to do.
You're going to have fraud even without the mail-in ballots.
Of course.
But here's the thing. And this is what I said. It's not that it's not a good idea. What I'm saying is that it's a losing proposition when people don't want to have their precious mail-in ballot taken away from them.
Well, I wonder how many of those people that do the mail-in ballot that still take the 3 hours off that's just given by code to go to the polling place and vote.
That's what I did this last time.
Yeah.
I took the time and I went and I stood in line for 2 hours and voted.
It's going to be difficult to convince 80% of the voters that they should give up their perceived right, which is not a right, it's a convenience, but they perceive it as a right that to mail in ballots.
I understand, but I mean, Jose, I'm going to still keep preaching to the choir. You know, I mean, you need to get rid of them.
You don't have to convince. You don't have to convince me. I don't have a problem with that. What you need to convince is the 80% of those people that are adamant about it.
Well, you got to convince 80%. Well, you got to convince 50-some% of the people who want to do the mail-in ballots. That's who you got to convince. The people that go to the polls and vote, they don't have a problem with it. So,
and we've been doing mail-in ballots since the 90s. But I personally think that it's the new party, and I'm just going to say it's the Democrat Party. They have just been hijacked by the progressives. That's why I think we have so much fraud.
Well, I don't think it's limited to the Democrat
And
Party.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that they've been so hijacked that I'm sure that there is fraud, but you don't see it in the Republican areas as much as you do the Democrat areas, the big cities.
That's another solution. We should try to convince more Republicans that they ought to cheat.
Yeah, well, personally, that's what I think people are kind of pushing out there, because a lot of Republicans are saying that, and even Trump has now come out and said, well, maybe we ought to start playing the game that the Democrats are playing. Unfortunately, with that, the Democrats will always be one step ahead of Republicans. Always.
Okay.
Okay.
House Bill HB 2472. Short title, Social Credit Use Prohibition. This bill obviously cleared the House. It's going to be in the Senate Finance Committee on Monday the 6th. It was introduced by Representative Montenegro, and what the bill does very simply is that it does not prohibit the use of social credit by banks and other lending institutions. What it does is prohibits the government from requiring it from these institutions, and which is two totally different things. Now, last time we discussed this, we were not exactly sure as to what social credit was. I think we have a better we have a better understanding of it now. And as far as it goes, I think the bill it's a good bill. although I wait to hear that, what you do have to say about it. But it doesn't go far enough because it's not a prohibition. All it is that it prohibits the government from requiring it, but it doesn't prevent Bank of America, for example, to use it, or Chase or whoever.
For that very reason, it's a useless bill.
That's right.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
It's a useless bill. There's no reason for this bill. It's just the legislator trying to do something for somebody, and who knows whom. But the government has no business being involved in this in one way or another. And to say that the government can't require it doesn't prevent the bank from requiring it. So, if you're going to make it so that it has some teeth in it, then preclude the banks from using it.
Right.
Simple as that. Otherwise, it's just a useless bill.
I agree. This is if you're going to have something like this, and I actually think it's a good idea. Just like you prohibit the use of race or ethnicity or anything like that when it comes to making loans, you can also prohibit the use of this social credit, which
and I could be mistaken on what we had discussed before, but in my opinion, and I think I brought this up, was it's discrimination. Again, because if you're using a social credit, you shouldn't be using social credit, and nobody should be. They should just be going by the facts on if a person can purchase something or whatever. It should have nothing to do with their social and what their political ideology is or anything.
Right.
So
I use social credit all the time. If I loan you money and you don't repay it, I don't loan you any more money.
That's exactly right. But you also, that's true, but that's on a personal basis. I'm talking banks and big corporations. But anyway, so what do we think on this one?
I forget what we did, but the consensus is that the idea is good, but the bill is worthless, so why bother?
Right.
Right.
Senate Bill SB 1013, Colleges, Universities, Free Speech Zones. This bill cleared the Senate, and it's now going to be heard in the House Education Committee on Tuesday, the 7th. This bill was introduced by Senator Kavanaugh, and it does a whole lot of things. But essentially, it does away with the idea that you can limit free speech to certain areas and for certain reasons and so on. We have talked about this before because it was in the House and it was in the Senate before, and I think we came to the conclusion that it was a good bill, but I don't remember exactly. What do you guys think?
Go ahead.
Well, I think that if I remember correctly, that we did think it was a good bill. Like with all the other bills, there's I'm sure something in here. But no, that they shouldn't, universities or private they shouldn't be trampling on free speech. And so I agree with this bill as it is.
I think we came to the conclusion that it was aimed primarily at prohibiting universities from denying people to come on campus and discuss certain areas. And if that's the case, I think it's a good thing. So anyway,
as long as it's peaceful.
I think it's an attempt to correct some of the problems that we've had before. I don't know. I'm sure you've seen the things on television where people have gone onto the universities and have been trying to make a presentation. But then the people opposed to whatever that position is, they appear and they basically shut down the presentation. And I think it's aimed at that, but it doesn't get that far. All it says is you're entitled to have free speech at certain areas on the university. But again, as far as I am concerned, if I go on to a university to make some kind of a speech at the invitation of some organization on that college, and then you have a bunch of people that are anti to whatever position I'm trying to present come in and totally destroy the meeting, what is the obligation of the university at that point? it would seem to me now that they're allowing the free speech to be destroyed. And this says, well, you've got to do it, but don't you have to guarantee the free speech?
Right.
If you're going to allow it, then you have to guarantee it, and there's no guarantee here. So you got to provide you got to protect whoever it is that's giving the
Well,
speech.
can we say this much, that it is a step in the right direction?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a step in the right
It-
direction, but it needs to go a lot further.
Okay.
Well, and I just want to say something. So I see videos of where some, and I don't know her name, she'll go on campus, or some of the guys will go on campus and they'll be asking questions. And there will be somebody there, and they're just asking just simple questions, just doing surveys or whatever you want to call them. And there's going to be somebody there that is wanting the police called or wanting the security campus called because they don't like being asked these questions. And it's been kind of refreshing to see that the police are coming, or the security, and telling the person who is opposing what's happening that they really can't do anything because they're entitled to be on the campus and they're not hurting anybody, harming anybody. So it has been kind of a refreshing thing to see.
Okay, so the consensus is that it's a good bill, it just doesn't go far enough.
Yes.
House Bill HB 2474, short title, School Immunization Exclusions. It's going to be heard in the Senate Health and Human Services Committee on Tuesday the 7th, introduced by Representative Montenegro. And there is there's a list of immunizations that cannot be required, so this is part of that. I think that mostly it stems from the COVID thing
Right.
that created this. But anyway, the children, nobody should be required, but especially children should not be required to be injected with experimental chemicals. It's that simple. And this bill goes a long ways toward protecting that right. And last time we discussed it, I think the question came up that it's unnecessary because we already have a parents' bill of rights and so on, and that is true. In a way, we don't need it because we already have the right of the parent to determine what happens to the child and so on. But like everything else, sometimes you have to fine-tune and be more specific as to what's allowed and what's not allowed. And this bill goes a long ways toward that, in my opinion. But Archie, what is your take
No,
on
I
it?
think it's a good idea. I think it, but understand that if you are the parent of a child that's entering preschool, before that child can enter preschool, there are certain immunizations that they must have before the school district will allow them to enter. That is a violation of the Parents' Bill of Rights. I don't think any immunization should be required. This just limits itself to one such as the COVID virus. But I don't think it's a violation of the Parents' Bill of Rights to require a child to be immunized against anything. That's specifically within the parents' purview.
Well, and some of the school districts, I don't know if all school districts, but they do allow the parents to do an opt-out program, and so they're allowed to opt out of having the immunizations.
Yeah, but the state law still requires that certain immunizations, you've got to have immunizations.
You can't just say, I don't want them. You have to give a reason, a medical reason.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that there's an opt-out that you can still do. And I think there are parents that, I know somebody who does that. So, but with that being said, it should not, I agree with this bill.
Yeah, I like the bill. It's just that it doesn't go far enough like a lot of these bills.
Correct.
Senate Bill SB 1011, Municipalities, Partisan Elections. It's a Senate bill clears the Senate, obviously, and it's going to be heard in the House Municipal Oversight and Elections Committee. And that's going to be on Wednesday, I believe, right? The 8th?
The
I believe the 8th is Wednesday. Introduced by Senator Kavanaugh, and it allows cities to list the political affiliation of candidates. Now, there's pros and cons to this, but one thing is clear. These city elections are very much partisan. Okay?
Absolutely.
There's no question about that. Now, this bill does not require that the party be disclosed publicly or openly, but it allows the cities to do so. Again, it's one of those where it does, okay, well, we allow it, or we, it's not strong enough. But still, we do have a situation where the city would say, absolutely, you cannot state your party in your material or whatever. And this law says, no, you cannot do that. If they want to state their party affiliation, they should be able to. And to that extent, it is a step in the right direction.
No, if you look at Title IX, 821.01 B, originally that prohibited the cities and the counties from indicating the designation of the political party of the candidate, and that has now been removed. And it's, if the city wants to do it, they can. That's good. I think it's a matter for the city's determination. Anyway, it's not a matter for the state to determine.
And I think that that's what we discussed the last time.
Yeah, and also this actually does exactly that. It enables the city to decide one way or the other.
Yeah, allows the city to do it, which is the way it should be.
Yeah, so we like the bill.
Yes.
And as a practical matter, we know that everybody knows the political. They may not know the political affiliation, but we do have a situation where we know when a candidate leans one way or the other what his affiliation is.
Exactly.
So, anyway, we agree that it is a good bill.
Yes.
And you folks watching at home, when we say that this is a good bill, all that means is that we recommend that you contact your legislators and express your opinion in favor, or when we say it's a bad bill, that you express your opinion against. Senate Bill 1141, short title, Early Ballot Drop-Off Identification. It's going to be heard in the House Municipal Oversight and Elections on Wednesday the 8th. It was introduced by Senator Hoffman, and it's a very simple bill. It requires a person who brings an early ballot that he or she must show identification. The way it is now, they just drop off the ballot and they rely on the signature on the ballot to determine its validity. What this will require is that if a person comes in with a ballot or more than one ballot, that they have to show identification. And if they have more than one ballot, they have to show why they're entitled to having those extra ballots. So makes to me it's a no-brainer.
I know why, and I agree with that, but I know why. So it's any voting center, and I think that was what my thing was the last time, is that it shouldn't be any voting center. If you're going to drop your early ballot off, it should be in your district, your precinct, and that's what they should be doing. It shouldn't be allowed anywhere.
Right, but as long as it is allowed, this bill requires that you have ID, which is a step, again, I keep on using that term, it's a step in the right direction, because almost everything that we do politically is just a small step.
Right.
Especially, we have a situation in Arizona where we have only one vote advantage in each chamber, and then we also have, to boot, we have a governor that's on the other side.
Right.
But even with that governor on the outside, we have a very limited amount of leeway as to what bills we can advance and not advance. So we have to be very careful. Unfortunately, we have to be very careful as to how we word it and how far we go. And in this case, requiring a valid ID, a government ID, it's a huge step in the right direction.
It is, in a way, yes. But I mean, if you look part of it, whenever you deliver that ballot, in order for that ballot to be counted, even after you present your identification, understand that under the provision, say they must attest in writing that the voter's agent is the voter's family member, household member, or caregiver. If you're not one of those three, you can't deliver, all right? Now, this also has another problem in that there is another bill pending, and I don't know exactly what its status is at this point in time, but any person caught in possession of a voted or an unvoted ballot that does not bear their name is guilty of a Class 6 felony. This would make you guilty of a Class 6 felony if the other bill passes. So we've got a major problem here.
Yeah, I don't know, I have not seen that bill, but if it is, I will be totally opposed to it because the original bill, and this passed about 3 years ago, the original bill was that, in fact, longer than 3 years ago, the original statute stated exactly what it says here, that you cannot, and it is a felony, you cannot bring somebody else's ballot except family member, caregiver. And that has been in the books. So if there's a bill now pending that says that you do not have those exclusions, that it is a felony if to bring anyone's bill, no matter what, I would be very much opposed to that, and I think it's a silly bill. I have not seen it, but if it is, I would be totally opposed to it. So, in the meantime, what this bill says that you bring ballots in, and it has to be, if you bring somebody else's ballot, it has to fall into those categories, and you must show ID. Those are two giant steps towards avoiding voter fraud. And I am totally in favor of it because of that.
And just real quick though, isn't there another bill out there for the precinct voting that isn't there another
Yes.
Another bill out there?
Yes.
And so all of these bills are just contradicting each other.
They are.
Yeah, but we've discussed this before.
Yeah.
No, they're going to be contradicting each other because we don't know which one is going to pass. Okay, so here we have a bill that says when you bring ballots to a voting center, well, if we no longer have voting centers because it was prohibited elsewhere, then this bill becomes irrelevant. Okay, no harm, it just became irrelevant. But if we do not get rid of the voting centers, then this bill will be very much relevant.
And if the other one passes, then this bill would also make these people guilty of a Class 6 felony.
No, the bill I'm talking about is one that would prohibit the voting center in the first place. And that would, and since there's no voting centers in the first place and there's no early balloting, then this will become irrelevant. So anyway, I don't pay attention to bills that say one thing and then another bill says another thing because we don't know which one is going to be, which one is going to pass. But we do agree that this is a good bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So please say yes when you contact your legislator. Senate Bill 1213. Now, when you look at this bill and you look at the short title, it says now in front of the short title. So this one is now Legislative Audit Committee Procedures Manual. Now, what that means when you see this, it means that the bill was the target of what they call a strike all amendment. And in the introduction to today's show, we talked a little bit about what a strike all amendment is, or a strike everything amendment is. What happened here is that, but this is it's a weird example because the original bill was not that different from what the strike amendment reads. Okay? In fact, the strike all amendment actually improves the bill because it makes it more clear.
Clear.
Okay? So this is one case in which a strike amendment, a strike everything amendment turned out to be a good thing, in my opinion. But as it is, the bill simply says that that the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, JLAC, would also have to be in on the decision to approve the EPM, which is the Elections Procedures Manual. The Election Procedures Manual now, if this bill were to be enacted, would also include an agency of the legislature. As it is now, only the executive branch has jurisdiction over this. It would be the Attorney General and the Governor. This would add members of the legislature via this Joint Legislative Committee to have jurisdiction over it as well. And I think it's a good thing in terms of balance of power.
I agree.
You do?
Yeah, I think I do. Yes, I do. I do.
After reading all of these bills and know how inept the joint
Well,
legislative, the legal counsel is?
I think with that, I think if you have more people that are overseeing something, it's a little bit better.
No, wait a second. We're talking about two different committees here. The committee that reads this, it's not the legislative committee. It's the audit committee, Joint Legislative Audit Committee. Mm-hmm. It's not the legislative committee that reads the bills before they go into before they're approved. No. This is totally different.
Yeah.
So, on the basis of that, I think that this is a good bill because it now involves the legislature as well as the executive.
Just provides another group of eyes to look at it, that's all.
And that's
not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah.
No, it's a good thing, I think. So, what's our consensus on that?
I'm in favor of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, gee whiz, how much?
At first, I was waiting for a slap down with Archie over that.
We're all in agreement?
Yes.
What's wrong with us?
We have to have somebody in this group to keep the group honest. That's me.
Yeah, but you're failing miserably because you're agreeing with us.
Anyway, so yeah, we all agree on this one.
It's a good bill, folks. Contact your legislators and tell them that this is a good thing to approve. Senate Bill SCR 1015. Short title: Initiative, Referendum, Signatures, Legislative Districts. This bill is going to be heard in the House Municipal Oversight and Elections Committee on the 8th, which is Wednesday. It was introduced by Senator Mesnard, and it amends the Arizona Constitution to require that support for ballot measures come equally from all legislative districts. First of all, let me say a couple of words about these types of bill. SCR, which stands for Senate Concurrent Resolution. These concurrent resolutions, the end result is that if both chambers approve the bill, it does not go to the governor for a signature, it goes to the people for their approval. Okay? And one type of bill that has to go to the people is one that amends the Constitution. That's the only way to amend the Constitution in Arizona. We're talking about the state constitution, of course. So, and that's what this is. Senate concurrent resolution, which would amend the Arizona Constitution to require that the signatures to get something on the ballot would have to come from all districts. Now, here's the problem. Now, since we have Arizona, and I suppose most states are this way also, but Arizona, it's quite extreme because we have two populations, well, actually one huge population center, one semi-huge population center, and the rest of the state is practically void of people,
Right.
relatively speaking. So what happens is that people in these two huge metropolitan areas, they can do anything they want. As a matter of fact, they're usually referred to, Maricopa County and Phoenix is usually referred to as the tail that wags the dog.
Right.
Because whatever we do affects the whole state, but the rest of the state has nothing to say about it because they're outnumbered.
Maricopa County is like 63% of the population in Arizona.
Right. There are 30 legislative districts in Arizona. 20 of them are in Maricopa County, 2/3. So anyway, what this bill does is says, okay, fine, but you need a certain number of signatures to put something on the ballot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, yes, but those numbers, a certain percentage has to come from each district, not just the districts in Maricopa or Pima counties. And to me, that makes a whole lot of sense because now people in Lake Havasu, people in Payson or Prescott or even Flagstaff, and other rural areas would have their voice in determining what gets on the ballot.
Right.
To me, it makes a whole lot of sense.
And I agree with that.
Archie?
And
I
Archie?
don't have an opinion on it one way or another. I mean, basically, what you're saying is that you may have a really good resolution or a really good initiative that comes up, and 90% of the state or 80% of the state is all in favor of it, but you've got one little district out there that says, nope, because it impinges upon something that I dislike, and so I'm going to stop it. So,
Okay. Well, you're bringing up something that is extremely important, and it has to do with federalism. Now, listen. When you have a federal type of government, where you have states that are semi-autonomous, okay, it's totally different from having a democracy. When you have a democracy, the majority rules, and there's no rights to the minority. I mean, whatever the majority wants, that's what happens. There are disadvantages to having a federal type of arrangement because of what you just said. Because there could be one individual or one section of the population that doesn't want something, and it causes it to fail when the majority want it. Yes, that is a downside of it. Just like everything else, there's always a downside, but in general, when you're talking about the overall picture, it is a good idea to have representation from everyone as opposed to just the major cities. And by the way, you still have to meet the numbers. What happens is that that those numbers have to include people from all different
legislative districts.
all different districts. So it's not like they're going to have that much of a veto power over it. So all it is it's just an equalizer. It's like giving the role people the peacemaker, called equalizer, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, I think it's a good idea.
And I think we all agree?
No.
No?
I don't necessarily agree. I'm up in the air on it. I understand the validity of what they're doing, but I also understand the downside of what they're doing because it allows a very much of a minority to control the will of the majority. And that may or may not be a good thing. Depends upon the subject matter. I mean, if the majority of the state wanted me to win the lottery, and Greenlee County says no, then I don't win the lottery. Simple as that. I mean, it applies to everything.
Right.
I mean, it may be that 29 of the districts say we want to give the teachers a raise, but one district says no.
Right.
And it could be healthcare, it could be anything. And I'm not at all sure that you want to limit and allow one individual district to have that kind of power. That's why I say I'm on the fence about it. I can see the good points on it, but I also see the downside of it. So.
Okay, I think we all agree that there's ups and downs, there's good and bad. It's just that two of us think that the good slightly outweighs the bad, and one of us thinks the bad possibly outweighs the good. So we have a 2-to-1 split decision here.
Well, the end result is you need to read the bill and make your own decision, don't you?
Right.
That's true with every bill that we've covered here. It's just our opinion, and we're giving you an idea, and we're giving you a number of a bill, and you need to read the bill, and you need to make your own decision, and you need to contact your legislators.
Yep.
That's the whole idea behind the show. This brings to an end this week's edition of Arizona Bill Watch. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please make sure you tell your friends, relatives, and anyone else you know. And make sure you tune in next week for another fantastic edition of Arizona Bill Watch.
Arizona Bill Watch, the show where you get satisfaction if you're not getting it from your state legislators.